Well, I'm just trying to pay back a smidge of what you've done to help me through the years.
Oh, my friend, you don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I know that. So I'm just going to give up.
That's right. Let's just pretend it all never happened.
Yes, why don't we just call it even? I'm good with that.
Wouldn't you love to just walk into the bank when,
Yeah.
to pay off your house or get a business loan or something? Just be like, you know
Yeah.
what? I've thought it over. Let's just call it even.
Why don't we? I've got a great idea for everybody. Let's take this trouble off your books.
Let's just let bygones be bygones.
Let's just let bygones be bygones and part as friends.
I mean, you're thinking of numbers. I'm thinking of numbers. Let's just stop all this thinking.
And let's just agree on zero.
Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd, welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design.
Today we're going to take a step back in time and into a bar from the past as we rub elbows with the beats.
We may be in Greenwich Village. We could be in North Beach. Wherever our bar is for you, it's home to the hippest cats and the coolest kittens.
So ask the bartender for some reasonably priced Chianti, wave the cigarette smoke away from your face,
and dig the crazy scene right alongside us here in the bar. Today is a bonus episode.
We stick with the theme of separating myth from reality when it comes to the beats.
Grab your sticks and a glass of cheap Chianti while we talk The Man with the Golden Arm, back here in the bar.
Ooh, Todd. Okay. I love that you brought up this movie. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah.
much for bringing this into the bar for our Beats bonus episode because, you know, we learned with the Beats, for those who listened to our wrap-up episode about this, there's a lot more mythology than we thought, and we had to try to pull it away, separate it a little bit from reality. Of course, our last episode touched on the idea of the beatnik as a character, right? We brought up Maynard G. Krebs. We brought up how he helped influence Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. I mean, it's a long list, right?
The archetype of the beatnik, right?
Yeah, the archetype of the beat. And it's really, through the years, influenced a lot of other characters. And I would say, as we also talked about, Hollywood sanitized the beat movement, really sort of commercialized it, packaged it up, made it safe, right? Really tried to monetize it. And really these people came off, the caricatures of these folks came off as sort of these loafing intellectuals, these eggheads, these ne'er-do-wells, right? They were goofs, they weren't very dangerous, and they were prototypical hipsters. They were hipsters before hipsters came along, right?
Right.
You brought to the bar today The Man with the Golden Arm, and I would love to talk a little bit more about this movie. I'm aware of it. I know it takes a different look at beat culture. Maybe it's a little bit more unvarnished. Maybe it's a little bit more honest. Certainly a little bit more gritty, right?
That's true, yeah. And I just want to say that I can't believe that it took us almost a couple minutes into this episode to use the word ne'er-do-well. I was really thinking it would have been within the first couple sentences, but I'm so glad you did.
Well, I was called a ne'er-do-well 3 times on the way up here into the podcast headquarters.
To the headquarters.
And that's by people I know.
I know. I was thinking, how many ways can we say like ne'er-do-well and ragamuffin and all those great words? Anyway, that's not what we are going to talk about today. We'll talk about that on another episode, I'm sure. But one of the things that I love about this movie, The Man with the Golden Arm, is all the threads that tie this to like outsider pop culture. Is that, I don't even know if outsider pop culture is a thing. You tell me, Elliot.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron, but I think I know where you're going with this.
So I love a thread. You know how I love to pull a thread. So we're talking about, as I said, the man with the golden arm. We're not talking about the Bond films. The man with the golden gun, or even Goldfinger.
Oh,
Those
yeah,
are
right.
Good. We're not even talking about that ghostly fairy tale story. I don't know if you heard this about the man who had the golden arm, prosthetic arm, and he comes back to life to haunt his relatives who stole his arm.
Yeah. That's called The Fugitive.
Yeah, I just think that's a hilarious ghost story, because once you're never going to come back and talk to your family. If I had a golden arm, I'd be like, see ya.
So, like, it was an actual fake arm made out of gold?
Yeah, like that's going to work.
How heavy would that have been?
I don't know, but anyway, I'll tell you the ghost story sometime.
Yeah,
they stole
I look forward
it
to that.
after he died, and then he came back and haunted
That's
them.
like a bonus episode to the bonus episode.
It is. It's a bonus. But let's talk about The Man with the Golden Arm. The 1955 American film classic was directed by Otto Preminger, and it was based on a novel by the same name by a very well-known author now by the name of Nelson Algren. And there's a little tea to spill on this relationship, as you can imagine, Elliot. I always got some tea in my pocket.
Now I know why you chose this movie.
Yeah, yes.
Todd and his secret creative lawsuit agenda.
That's totally it. And I've got some good controversy on this one. But let me, for those of you who may have heard the name of the movie and are less familiar, it starred Frank Sinatra. I hear he did well for himself.
I heard of him.
Yep. Eleanor Parker, Kim Novak, Arnold Stang, Darren McGavin.
Oh, the old man from A Christmas Story.
Yes.
Love it.
See, we're tying threads together already. So in short, it's a dark story of the underbelly of society. Drug addict, card dealer. He gets clean while he's in prison, learns the drums while in prison, and then struggles to stay clean in the outside world. So the novel was written in 1949. And it's critically considered one of the seminal novels of the post-World War II America. Like, you've mentioned this in the Beat episodes in the past. That was such a heavy influence of the Beats.
Yeah, I mean, that was really when they were taking off.
Yeah.
That was when Kerouac was traveling around.
Yeah, 1949. And this was like the peak of it. So it's also considered Nelson Algren's greatest and most enduring work. It was published right at the height of the Red Scare. And this is kind of funny. This is a little diss here. It's a subtle piss-off insulting his former fellow Communist Party members. He was a communist in the 30s.
An unabashed, like admitted communist?
Like card-carrying.
Wow, he was a red.
Communist.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah. And this book was it's a little bit of a piss-off to two guys. One, I'm going to call him out. Right now.
Okay.
Louis Boudin's, who was an activist and a journalist named Howard Rushmore. And so what they did, they committed the cardinal sin. They sold out. They started telling on Communist Party members to the FBI.
They flipped. Okay.
They did. So there's more tea there. We should probably write this up in a blog post or something, because that's not really getting too much into the beats. But anyway, so this is why I think Algren was a good example of the beat writers. He gathered inspiration from and he wrote about this world of drunks, pimps, prostitutes, freaks, drug addicts, prize fighters, corrupt politicians, and hoodlums. I'm sure ne'er-do-wells too.
Yeah, I would put all of those people in the ne'er-do-well bucket.
They fall into. I love that it's like drug addicts, prize fighters, and corrupt politicians. I read about that.
And also just freaks, which I assume means
freaks,
in this case. Well, I would think it like in the Carney kind of mid-century definition, like people biting the heads off chickens and stuff like that. I think
it's those living on the fringes.
Yes,
we'll say it like that. They could be my relatives that I love dearly.
Okay.
So anyway, the screen rights to Algren's novel The Man with the Golden Arm. They were first acquired in 1949 when it was published on behalf of John Garfield. He was planning to star in and make the movie version. Due to the unacceptable, let's say controversial story of I'm doing air quotes here, quite illegal drug use, production got delayed and delayed and delayed.
Sure,
so,
no one wanted to touch it.
No, and that's part of the controversy.
And I think it was even like beyond that, right? Because this gets into like the code, right? Like the Hays Code, the decency code of Hollywood.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So even though it might have been a good story, I mean, obviously it sounds like the book was great. People just really weren't willing to wade into these waters, it sounds like.
Not in the mid-50s America. No.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the book was widely loved and widely recognized. But that's one thing, as we've heard in some of our episodes already with the authors. They ran into a little bit of hot water. But when you start putting Hollywood money and production behind this, it starts to get real critical. Anyway, funny thing happened on the way to getting this movie made. The actor who had bought the rights, John Garfield, he died in 1952, and the film rights were then bought by Hungarian-Austrian director Otto Preminger from his estate, from John Garfield's estate.
So was it the communists who killed Garfield? Do we know this? Was it the FBI?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
Freemasons, got it. Okay.
All right. So that's a little bit of the novel that got to the movie. So how about a little bit about the movie? Do you want to do a quick summary of that?
Yeah. Because when you brought this up, I actually went and watched the movie. We'll post a link to this on our episode page, because the movie actually, where I stumbled on it when I started to do my research, is actually the movie is posted to the Wikipedia page about the Man with the Golden Arm, and you can just literally watch the whole movie. I mean, how that's
true.
Possible, I don't know. I'm sure it's in other places as well, but since I found it in the first place I looked, there's no need to keep looking. So, mainly because I'm lazy. I'm a lazy ne'er-do-well. I'm the, you might consider me the Maynard G. Krebs of this podcast.
You're a hoodlum, aren't you?
Yeah.
But you were talking about this, and tell us a little. Do it. Give us a little quick summary of the plot here. And I know it's complex, but I know you can make it brief.
I'll try to Siskel and Ebert this thing. Okay, here we go. So Sinatra played this character called Frankie Machine. I love that, by the way.
I love that name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great name. So as you mentioned earlier, he's a reformed drug addict, and he was in prison, the narcotic farm in Lexington, Kentucky, right? And so while he's in there, he gets this set of drums. He learns how to drum to jazz music, and he kind of gets this new outlook on life, right?
Yeah.
So he gets himself clean. He does his time. And he then returns to the kind of down on the heels, rundown neighborhood on the north side of Chicago that he was from before he went to jail, right? So he soon meets friends and acquaintances. So there's this kind of tableau, this sort of fast sequence at the beginning of the film where you start to see all of these characters quickly reintroduce themselves, right? And this goes into this bucket of people we talked about earlier. So we have, of course, con men, gambling men, illegal, like bookmakers, people like this, not like people running a casino, but bookmakers, drug dealers. So basically all the things that he was getting away from when he went to prison. So he makes his way home. He goes and sees all these people. Makes his way home to his wife named Zosh, who's living in a wheelchair from a car crash that, as we learn, was caused by Frankie the Machine's
yeah.
drunk driving,
His drunk
right?
driving.
So this is
Yeah.
a little bit, so you go into the script so far, this is a little bit of a morality lesson.
Yeah.
Like, this is
getting a little bit sensitive here.
Yeah, it's not, so far so good. The message is clear. He's a bad guy who has to live with his consequences from doing bad things. So she's naturally, as you can imagine, bitter, but she's also manipulative. So he definitely feels guilty about it, and she knows that. And so, a lot of times when she wants to twist the dagger it's sticking in his ribs, she does it. So he wants to make a new way for himself. He wants to play drums for a big band, right? He thinks he's talented. He thinks he's got the juice. Well, lo and behold, old habits die hard, so he's back on drugs due to lack of support from his wife, due to all of these characters who have re-entered his life. And he is doing these marathon all-night card games, right? He's a dealer at these games, so he's trying to make a fast buck. He gets this tryout as a drummer, but then he, because he'd spent 24 hours straight dealing in a poker game, he gets beaten up. He desperately needs a fix, all this sort of stuff that happens in advance of this audition, right?
Right.
So goes to the audition. He's in withdrawal, so he's can't keep the beat. He's got the shakes, all the stuff. Ruins his chances of landing the drumming job. So again, I would argue this is actually a message, like kids, stay off the drugs, or your
stay off the drugs.
You will never achieve your dreams, right?
Don't be a ne'er-do-well. Keep the beat.
Yes, and so to speak.
Yeah.
And then from there, the story starts to get a little bit complex because there's, of course, lies, deception, there's suicide, there's cold turkey at the end of this. So we actually, there's an ending that leaves a lot open to interpretation, right? So, without getting too far into it, folks can look on IMDb. As we talked about, we can go onto Wikipedia, the movie's there, so you can jump in, jump out, and you can sort of see what we're talking about a little bit. But that's, I would say, do you agree that's kind of the gist of the film, more or less?
Yeah, and the book by Algren was a little different. They're the same, some of the same characters, some of the same action, but right from the get-go, the making of that film that you just explained caused quite a stir on sort of every front. And that's the interesting part, because you said before, when we've talked about the beats and some of the authors and some of the legal troubles that they were in, that 1955 America wasn't ready for the art of the beats. It had to be pasteurized and sanitized, but that's what Algren, the author, wanted to talk about. And you can imagine if you're doing a giant Hollywood budget movie with that taboo subject of drug addiction right at the center of it, how much of a hot spotlight that's going to get.
And I think we need to also remind listeners, this is 2 years before On the Road came out.
Right.
So, people sort of kind of knew about the beats, but it really hadn't sort of been codified in major media yet. So your idea of the freaks and the outliers, that's exactly what these people were thought of as.
Yeah, so the author Nelson Algren represents this better than anybody. I really kind of found myself lost in a hole of all the things that he was about, because he was initially brought in to write the script for the movie, and he and the production soon parted ways. It seems he and Otto Preminger didn't really see eye to eye, which, that happens in Hollywood.
Like, especially if one of them's taller than the other.
Yeah, one of them's like 6'4" and the other's like 5'4". It's hard to see eye to eye. But anywho's, so I was like, oh, okay, there's a controversy there. Like the guy that was
You
really
sniffed it
representing. I sniffed it out. I'm going to be like the Hollywood hunt.
You're McRuff the crime dog when it comes to creative controversy. I like it.
You are so gonna love this quote that I found from the book called Never a Lovely So Real, The Life and Work of Nelson Algren. It's by a guy named Colin Asher.
All right,
and you're going to love this quote. Okay, here's the quote. He had spent the previous year rewriting a book he couldn't stomach and running from a wife he didn't love. I mean, damn. It gets better. He was agonized by the State Department's refusal to issue him a passport. They distrusted his leftist political views, and he had wandered from state to state, from bus stop to cheap motel, desperate to find a place where he might be at peace to write the way he wanted to. He knew Hollywood was no place for authors of distinction, but couldn't argue with $1,000 a week. He was soon in the company of the Austro-Hungarian director Otto Preminger, who had bought the rights to his novel and wanted him to write the screenplay. Bringing Algren down Wilshire Boulevard in his hot red Cadillac, Preminger chose the worst first question to ask his new collaborator. How come you know such terrible people you write about? Yes.
I love that.
I mean, that's not from the movie. That's about the guy that wrote the book. I mean, he was going from bus stop to cheap motel. I love that. Writing a book he couldn't stomach and running from a wife he didn't love.
Write what you know, man.
Yeah. I mean, he was a complex guy, and the Hollywoodizing of his novel, it just made his blood boil. He hated schlock, avoided happy endings. He hated that predictable narrative of good and evil. Mm-hmm. And Frank Sinatra, man, that was, he just couldn't deal with that.
He didn't love Old Blue Eyes?
Well, he didn't, not in this particular case.
Right,
yeah.
Sure. Too squeaky clean.
He was a little too mainstream. And so Algren was quickly replaced by a guy named Walter Newman, and Preminger proceeded to change the plot and the characters extensively from the original novel, which brought just more and more bitterness from Algren.
Toss more logs on the fire.
So it just got worse and worse. He had a friend photographer named Art Shea who asked Algren to pose below the film's marquee when it came out. And Algren said, "What does that movie have to do with me?"
I love it.
I'm like, me? Yeah, man. Just let it go, dude.
Yeah, so did he, did he get money for, even though he must have gotten, when they bought the book, right? So,
he got money,
it's not, it's not like he was, he just didn't get to put his thumbprint all over it, but he still got something for it.
Yeah, but think about what you've told us about the Beats. They were uncompromising, right?
It's all about the integrity of the work.
Yeah, and so you get an author that's uncompromising, and you get an Austro-Hungarian director that's uncompromising.
Not known for their sense of humor, generally.
That's right. Shit goes down.
Yeah, fur starts to fly, yeah.
So that's an interesting bit about how the movie got made. You gave us a little bit of the plot. But I think for me, and you know more about this than I do, for me, the thing that captures the spirit of the Beats, besides just the narrative and the subject matter, it's all those elements that brought this movie to life.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, remember, the guy is a jazz drummer. The main character is a jazz drummer, right? So you really need to have a movie that would have a soundtrack that was jazz. So
makes sense.
So on this point, even though they sort of screwed up when it came to the script or maybe the casting, and with regard to the casting, if memory serves me correctly, didn't Sinatra get nominated for an Academy Award for this? Didn't this sort of bring him back, like reboot his career?
It did. Actually, the movie garnered several nominations. It was hugely successful for that time because it was so gritty.
Yeah, it was so different from what everybody was used to, and suddenly this was dropped in their hometown, right? This was in their theater.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing with regard to the soundtrack was the fact that one thing Hollywood got right was they actually approached jazz musicians. They approached people who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So the film score, which, again, people can find, I'm sure you can probably stream it on YouTube or Spotify or wherever. The film score was composed, arranged, and conducted by some unknown guy named Elmer Bernstein.
Oh, I think I've heard of him.
Maybe,
I think I've
maybe
heard
just
of him,
a little
yeah.
bit.
He went on to do some stuff.
He did. And then there were two key jazz artists who were part of the film as well. Sheldon "Shelly" Mann, who taught Sinatra to actually play the drums for this part, and then Shorty Rogers, who was the trumpet and flugelhorn player, and one of the principal creators of West Coast jazz or cool jazz, right? We talked about that a little bit with Dave Brubeck and some of these other folks.
Yeah, you've mentioned Shorty Rogers in the past.
Exactly. So both of these guys are actually in the movie. They have sort of cameos, so to speak, although they're characters, right? So Shorty is playing the arranger and the conductor, and he's at the audition that Frankie the Machine screws up. So.
And those, I think you know more about this than I do, but the name Shorty Rogers, and I've heard Shelly Mann.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember the context of when we talked about Shorty Rogers. He's played with everybody, right?
So yeah, both guys were everywhere in the music world, right? So they played with all the greats: Woody Herman, Will Bradley, Les Brown, Eartha Kitt, Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong. Okay. And even the Monkees' Daydream Believer himself.
There's
all over the map.
So there's a wide range of artists there
so
that Shorty Rogers has worked with. He clearly had a long career.
All right, but one more thing, and we've talked about this also in a past episode. You know how much I love Three Little Bops, the jazzy reinterpreting of the Three Little Pigs. So in 1957, Shorty Rogers was the guy who composed the music for Fritz Freeling's Three Little Bops.
That's where I remember you talking about it. That was like episode 18, wasn't it?
Dig in the
Saturday
crates.
morning cartoons.
Yeah, go back, listeners, and look. I mean, I have loved this cartoon my whole life from the first time I saw it. So please, please, please do yourself a favor and check it out. You will love it. And although uncredited, it's widely believed that our friend Shelly Mann also played the drums in the Three Little Bops. So, so these guys have a lot of tie-ups, even outside of just this movie. Right? I mean, but that's Hollywood, right? People collaborate all the time.
Yeah, but talk about all the threads that are tying things together there. Wow.
Hey, speaking of tying things together, I'd love to connect with a fresh beer for the second half of our conversation.
Yeah, and I'm seeing my credit card connecting with your bar tab, dude. So, okay, everyone. We're going to step away and sort this mess out, and we'll see you back here in just a minute. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters.
Think Ghostbusters.
Iconic images.
Think Bigfoot.
Punk music.
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons.
The Pink Panther.
And failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase Two Designers Walk Into a Bar.
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
So, Todd, I need to jump into this. So we've referenced a couple episodes already. We've talked about the beats. But I think we're leaving on the table. I mean, this is a podcast about pop culture and design. So
Right.
let's talk about the design aspect of this movie for a moment.
Yeah. So another kind of up and comer that worked on this, a guy named Saul Bass, I think is how you pronounce it.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yes. I think he went on to be called Saul Bass, but a lot of people, as I was looking into this, he certainly became well known for film titles,
Gosh, yeah.
and a lot of people were saying this was his first title sequence, but it really wasn't. It was early in his career of title sequences, but it just radically changed how Hollywood and the public saw the use of titles. They saw them like what he did, and we'll talk a little bit about what it looks like and stuff, but what he did is he turned it into just a mini encapsulation of the story to tease the viewers, and it acted almost like an opening act to the feature.
Right, exactly. And of course, we've done an episode about TV show titles we really love.
Right. We talk about Saul Bass in that one.
Yeah, and I think another great example, if for a more contemporary example that people are probably familiar with, is really how James Bond movies, when you have the titles at the beginning of James Bond movies, there's a lot of symbolism that happens later in the films, and there's layers and animations and things like that. So that's obviously a little bit more contemporary, a little bit richer. But if I remember correctly, didn't he, in addition, like how I first heard about this movie, wasn't the movie itself, but it was the poster, because he also did the poster.
Same here.
Yeah,
same here. So in addition to the title sequence, he did the poster, and what he decided, because it was clearly a taboo subject in the mid-1950s,
right.
He decided to do it animated and conceptual, which that was a little different. And just describing the look of the poster and the opening title, it's animated, it's black on white cutouts of bars, and they literally dance around to Elmer Bernstein's jazzy kind of film noirish score, and they form patterns, and they fracture, and they come together, and ultimately they form this iconic looking disjointed arm. And I'm sure everyone has seen this.
Yeah, we'll post this on our episode page for sure.
It's a beautiful disjointed arm which represents so much. And Saul Bass wanted to create a sensation with these titles. He felt like he had the opportunity with this movie because of the subject matter. And he chose that disjointed arm as the central image because, it's the man with the golden arm. That's kind of on the nose, but it relates to heroin addiction. And card dealing.
Right. Well, what I also love about this idea is that the titles, I feel like the poster, going back to our jazz album designs that we've talked about, and even some of the illustration styles that we also talked about, I feel this sort of took that idea, that style, and because it had this jazz soundtrack, it's almost this idea of, hey, why not animate what the jazz album art would do to a jazz soundtrack, right?
Right.
And so this is almost a living jazz album, I think.
So actually, the music and the titles were being worked on at the same time.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
So what Elmer, because we're on first name basis now, what Elmer did was give Saul a click track. So he didn't really know the power of the music. So in some ways, he was kind of informed by the style, but it left it open for him to really make this art sing. And there's a book that I found, and you probably have seen it. It's called Saul Bass, A Life in Film and Design. It's by an author named Pat Kirkham. And she writes, the challenge facing Saul was how to create a symbol that captured the drama and intensity of the film without resorting to sensationalism.
Sure.
So, keeping it classy, Saul. And then she goes on to say, The title sequence was equally compelling. Here was modern art on the movie screen. And in her book, she says, Saul stated that the intent of this opening was to create a mood that was spare, gaunt, with driving intensity that conveyed the distortion and jaggedness, the disconnectedness and disjointedness of the addict's life, who is the subject of the film. So this is what's so funny. You had mentioned the poster before,
Yeah.
and it's iconic. The title sequence, iconic. There's other iconic posters out there, which we've talked about in previous episodes. But how important was this poster and title design? When the prints of the movie went out to theaters, Otto Preminger accompanied them with a note instructing the projectionist to only run the first reel after the curtains were drawn back. He wanted everyone to make sure that they saw the titles in context of the whole movie. And there's even another story that I uncovered from a book called The World and Its Double, The Life and Work of Otto Preminger by Chris Fujiwara. And he says, Preminger liked the design so much, he threatened to pull the picture if an exhibitor changed the advertisement.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
That's kind of like,
Design
hey, your client's
champion.
really
Yeah,
digging this,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. What was that? I mean, was that the poster is not very specific. Like, it's not very graphic in the sense of, like, it's not showing, like, for example, there's a version of Junkie by William Burroughs, not like a more contemporary version that was like a reissue of that book that came out in the 90s, if I remember correctly. And the cover has kind of this Saul Bass kind of arm, but it actually shows a syringe coming out of it, you know, and there wasn't anything like that in the poster.
No, not in the original release. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It has the crooked, fractured arm and a couple images of the actors, but definitely ties in with the title. And so it really interesting altogether, you know, that one piece of art ties this the period together, 1949 through sort of mid-50s, and it addresses some of the controversy that was happening then. So what have we learned in all this, Elliot?
Well, the main thing I learned was that Frank Sinatra was secretly a beat.
So I'm talking about, like, when you think about the myth of beat culture versus the reality.
Oh, that. I learned that Frank Sinatra was not really a beat.
Okay, there you go. And because it was such a taboo subject for this movie, Otto Preminger literally broke the Hollywood production code.
Yeah.
If you and again, I mentioned this earlier. We're going to write about this with a little bit extra news and put it on our blog because he really did change the way movies are seen. From
what I remember, I mean, he basically made, like, if I remember correctly, the way the code worked, you had to submit a script, and I can't remember, was it I can't remember who ran the people ultimately in the Hays Code. Like, I think it was
the MPAA.
But it was, but didn't the studios kind of self-regulate so that in hopes to kind of keep the government's tentacles, like, off the industry? So they.
Well, and what they had to do was had to kind of honor the code because theaters wouldn't distribute movies.
Yeah, they didn't want to run the risk of people complaining, getting shut down, and all that. So basically, they went ahead and Preminger just made this movie and kind of was like, I don't care what you think, you know. And but you know, for a guy coming out of World War II, I can understand this probably wasn't the biggest thing, and someone, you know, from continental Europe would have seen in the last few years. It probably didn't scare him that much. So he went ahead, he makes this movie. And, you know, it's just basically like come and get me, right? Like, he almost dared the studio to, like, he's making this movie. They would have lost money, right? If it hadn't come out.
Clearly.
So, and I think what it ended up doing, correct me if I'm wrong, is it kind of opened the possibilities to more, to, you know, to use the word gritty, you know, more realistic depictions of certain things in people's lives that could actually happen on the screen. It was more authentic after that. It wasn't quite so sugar-coated.
Yeah, and I would say with what Otto Preminger did to change the Motion Picture Association in the mid-'50s, the players that were also part of the movie were well chosen because they were masters of their craft.
Yeah.
Not talking just Sinatra, who was certainly a superstar, but Shorty Rogers, Shelley Mann, Elmer Bernstein, Saul Bass. And as much as Preminger changed Hollywood, these guys tilted their art off of sort of the normal axis as well.
Yeah, I think it was a collective effort for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a world-class collection. The last thing I'll say, and kind of tying all this together, is going back to my friend, the author, Nelson Algren. He wasn't happy with this movie. He wasn't happy with Otto Preminger. He wasn't happy with Frank Sinatra. He wasn't happy with the whole scene. He was somewhere between a bus stop and a cheap motel, being unhappy. But the friction between his view of this kind of underbelly that was so important for him to spotlight and for the Beats to recognize had to be repackaged for mainstream America, as you've said a couple times. And compromise wasn't in his or Otto Preminger's vocabulary.
Yeah, well, when I think you've sort of sold the rights at that point, the director and the studio are the ones who are going to win.
Yeah, 100%. So last thing I'll say is, I love a thread.
Yes.
I love to pull a
You
thread.
love a scene and you love a thread.
I love a scene. I love a thread. There's so many to pull here on The Man with the Golden Arm. And I'll tell you what, Algren's very next novel asks the question why lost people sometimes develop into greater humans than those who have never been lost in their whole lives. And the title of it was A Walk on the Wild Side.
Ah, that sounds familiar.
It sounds so, we might start talking about that next time.
I love it. Nice hint. Way to drop a hint.
That's right. See, it's a thread, man, tying them all together.
It really, really is. Well, thank you for bringing this movie into the bar today. I mean, I guess you could bring it into the bar because you could watch it on your phone.
Sure, yeah. And all this walk down memory lane and tying threads has made me thirsty.
Oh, me too. Okay, well, Todd, twist.
You buy that. Okay, thanks.
I left my wallet.
See,
I'll tell you what, I will. I just left my wallet out in the car. You wait here, and I'll be right back.
Okay, Elliot, that sounds great. I've done that before.
Well, I guess our listeners can figure out where it's about to go next. So how about we say goodbye, and we will catch up with everyone very, very soon when Todd continues being narrator, and really excited to see what we talk about next.